I'm Bianca Lee, and I am the one.
Welcome to I Am the One, Entrepreneur Edition, a show that explores the journey of business owners who decided to be the one to make life better for the people they serve. I'm your host, Sonia Thompson, and today's guest is the always fabulous Bianca Lee. Bianca is the founder of White Rose Marketing, an outsourced marketing department for small businesses. She's also a global marketing expert. Prior to starting White Rose Marketing, she spent a number of years growing million-dollar brands around the world, including many countries in Sub-Saharan Africa. We can learn a lot from Bianca's experience, as well as from the learning she's picked up from her recent transition from the corporate world into entrepreneurship. So I'm super excited to share her story with you today. But before we get into the interview, I want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Try Business School. Get the information you need to build the business of your dreams, step by step. Visit trybizschool.com, that's trybizschool.com, and get started with your free e-course, the 4 people you need to build a successful business. Now, let's get to it. Here's Bianca. Hey, Bianca. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's so great to have you on the show.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's go ahead and dive right in. Tell me a little bit about White Rose Marketing.
So White Rose Marketing is a marketing consulting company. We have a special niche. We work with companies that are U.S.-based looking to grow their business in Sub-Saharan Africa. We also work with African companies who are looking to grow their business in the U.S. So as much as we're a marketing consulting company, we do focus on Sub-Saharan Africa as our niche market.
That's awesome. I don't think I've come across another business yet who has done quite what you do. So very specialized, very cool. So what was the problem that you saw that existed that caused you to say, you know what, I'm going to solve this problem. I'm going to go ahead and meet this need in the marketplace?
So my background is brand management, and I've had the pleasure of working on both sides, so to speak. So working on the U.S. as well as working in Sub-Saharan Africa. And what I noticed was that there were great examples of U.S. companies that were looking to grow in Africa, and they would try to export their U.S. plan directly into Africa with little to no success, and vice versa. I've seen examples of African companies who've tried to crack the U.S. and break into the U.S., and again, little to no success. One thing that I've realized is that just as much as African companies understand Africa and American companies understand America, they do need to have that same understanding of the countries that they're going to enter into. It's not good enough to take an American understanding and all of the assumptions that you don't even realize you're making and use that to guide your business strategy and, more importantly, your marketing strategy, where you connect with your end user in a new market and vice versa. Right. So I think there are cultural differences, there are political differences, there are social differences, and then there's the conventional way that each country will do things. And I think those are all key to understanding.
Absolutely. So. Why do you think so many people, and these are big companies with big budgets a lot of times from your experience, why do you think that they make the same mistake over and over and over again of trying to go into a market without actually having a solid understanding of it?
Well, because it's worked before. I mean, you can take an American strategy into most Western countries and it will work. Okay. You can take a U.S. strategy into Europe, into Canada, in some Latin American countries, it will actually work with some adjustments. The non-Western world is just different. When you start talking about Africa, when you start talking about some of the Asian countries, the culture is just completely different. So I think that, if it's worked for you before with minor adjustments, why wouldn't you continue to adjust it and continue, to kind of push forward with that? Plus, most businesses are in business to make money. Actually, all businesses are in business to make money. So the more you spend on understanding a market more than you have to or more than you think you need to, the smaller your margin becomes once you do create a successful business model. So I think that there's a disincentive to dump any more into something if you're not, in terms of upfront research or insight work, if you're not 100% sure that it's going to pay back on the back end, and if you've done minor adjustments before and it's worked, then it could seem as a waste, like it's a waste of money until you have an issue and then you wish you would have done it. So
is there a baseline, or let's say a minimum level of market research that you need to do before you enter a market, just to make sure that you are comfortable and you know enough before you're going in, so you don't sort of repeat a lot of those mistakes that happen whenever you aren't aware of how it's different?
Absolutely. I think, first you want to do your basic demographic, just very, very basic. Like, what is the demographic, sort of, and sociographic, in terms of your socioeconomics in the country? Because when you go into various African countries, first of all, there's, depending on who you ask, between 53 and 55 different African countries. And depending on the day of the week, you get new ones come up all the time, right? So each country, Malawi is a very poor country. South Africa is not as poor, and they're both in Southern Africa. So you can say Sub-Saharan Africa or Southern Africa, but these are two countries that behave very differently from an economic standpoint. In terms of demographics, I think there's some stat that says that Kinshasa, which is a city in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, will be the city with the most French-speaking individuals under the age of 15 within the next 10, 20 years. Because the age range, it looks a little bit more like a pyramid in Africa, which means that the younger ages are actually much larger part of the society. And as they get up in age, the numbers dwindle, which is very different than most Western society, who age breakdown looks a little bit more like a ladder or an H, if you will. We have just as many old people as we do young people,
right.
Or seasoned people, or however you want to say it. So I think things like that are interesting when you're looking at various industries. Obviously things like baby formula and diapers would be much larger of a sale in Africa than they even are here in the U.S. Things like some of the medications that we use here for aging populations may not be as much of a hit, even though there's 1 billion consumers in Africa. That layout in terms of demographics and the socioeconomic makeup of that demographic actually made quite a difference. So that's just a very basic sort of first blush that you can do. You can pull that research, from probably any sort of desk research or search engine. I also think you have to take a look at the category and the category that you're intending to play in. What the current state is, what the conventions of that category are, what's the word? The tangential offerings are within that category. It's basic, sort of like Porter's 5 forces analysis, SWOT, and things that you would do in any other market. I think the bottom line is that anything that you would do to launch a product anywhere else is also applicable in Sub-Saharan Africa.
Got it.
There are no shortcuts.
There are no shortcuts in anything. There's this great quote that says, I don't take shortcuts because it takes too long.
Exactly.
You guys have to end up going back. I got to find out that exact quote. But yeah, it goes something like that. All right, well, that was very insightful, and I think we could talk about the markets and how they're different for a long time. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about your experiences as an entrepreneur. So tell me a little bit about, what were your life circumstances before you started your business? A lot of times people want to have everything lined up perfectly before they get started, and a lot of times that doesn't happen. So what was your experience what was going on with your life whenever you started White Rose Marketing?
So I've always wanted to start White Rose. I've kind of done various starts along the way over the last 5 years.
Right.
So I think in the beginning, through the entire time I was working at major Fortune 500 companies. My entire career, I spent over a decade working in marketing for various large companies in brand management. I even did a stint on the pharmaceutical side, so product management there. It was, it was comfortable. There was, it's kind of the normal, you commute into the office. You got coworkers. You got your little cube or your office, depending on your level. You get your trips that are like company paid for, and you got your corporate car. I mean, it came with all the fixings, and all the benefits of, having the medical insurance and some of the other fringe benefits that you get for working for a large corporation. So that was very comfortable. But I will say that a lot of it I noticed. So I've been part of several different mergers and acquisitions and restructuring. So I think a lot of that that I experience, it doesn't happen in everybody's corporate career, but what I experience is that the comfort. Um, how do I put this nicely? It was almost a facade of stability.
Okay.
It wasn't as stable as we all wanted to believe it was,
Right.
because I worked for a company where 3 years in a row they restructured, and restructuring is a very nice way of saying that, some people at the end of that process, weren't going to have jobs. And that's okay if you plan for it. It's not okay if you don't plan for it. And
Right.
most people that work in corporate don't plan on being self-employed or, entrepreneur or some sort of temporary work. They plan to be employed for the majority, if not all of their career, and retire from their employment. So it was quite, emotional and a little bit devastating. So I think that as much as it was comfortable, there was also something looming in the back of my mind that this gig is going to be up at some point. So,
Right.
yeah.
So knowing that could be coming your way, you decided to go ahead and start White Rose and take your fate into your own hands.
Or into the hands of my clients, yeah. Because now the clients are the boss. But
Right.
yeah, absolutely.
So what was your biggest fear when it came to starting your business? Now, you're talking about leaving that corporate environment that comes with all those perks, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And short of walking in and getting laid off, there's a check coming every other week, or however often you get paid. What was your biggest fear whenever it came to starting your own business and being 100% full time?
Well, I had loads of fears. I think I still have a lot of them. The first one was, like you said, the comfort that comes along working in corporate. That's not there. So the biggest fear is that, I'll run out of money before I'm able to make enough money to sustain my lifestyle.
Right.
The fear there is that my lifestyle will have to change, or, I'll have to moonlight making some sort of money just so I can keep the lights on. And like, there's always a fear of, will I have enough money? Will my business make money? And will my business start to make money before the savings that I have run out? So I think that's the biggest fear. Yeah, I think that's the biggest. I also had fears about the business. I'm in quite a niche space. I do take clients that aren't necessarily focused on Africa. I mean, we are a marketing consulting firm with that as our core competency. So, um, but making sure that clients understand what we're doing. I mean, we don't offer a tangible product. We offer a service.
Right.
And, unlike advertising agencies or other execution type firms like PR firms, they write a press release. Strategy and putting together a good plan, you can't touch it, you can't feel it. You know when it's working, and it should be fairly obvious when it's not working, but it's tough to charge someone for something, especially if it's not their expertise. It's tough to get the value across. So there's always that fear of, will people be willing to pay me
Right.
for the work?
And what do you do to overcome that fear?
Well, make sure I choose the right clients first and foremost. The clients that do see a value in the service that I offer and are willing to pay for it. So you have the client selection is kind of everything. I mean,
Right.
you'll pull your hair out spending lots of time with the wrong client. Yeah, or you can have a nice, relatively easy working relationship with the right one. So I think that's the biggest thing. And then also, I try to make sure that I explain things in layman's terms so that everybody understands it. I think in my corporate career, I was one of many marketing people at the table, so everybody understood what we were talking about. But when you're working with a business, sometimes you're the only marketing person, and you do have to explain that. I think that the best thing to do in these situations is to make sure that your strategy starts showing results as immediate as possible.
Right.
just immediate results. So if there's a way that you can build in some sort of sales, even while you're still learning, or if there's something that you can do on the front end to kind of get a little bit of a spike in sales to get them on board, they'll stick with you a little longer than if you are telling them they have to pay and pay and pay. And then
Right.
6 months from now, you're going to see like that
Right.
the patience may not be there.
Right. Make sure you bake into the plan ways to get in some quick wins so everybody can say, all right, yeah, I'm glad that we went down this path.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right. So you haven't been in business full-time with White Rose for very long, but as an entrepreneur, you're able to learn very, very quickly. So what is it that you've learned since you've been doing this? And that if you could go back and give some advice to your younger self at the point in which you were starting your business, what would you say to your younger Bianca?
I think I would say just go for it. I mean, I think there's this going assumption that the more work experience you have, the better you'll be at your profession.
Mm-hmm.
But your profession as an entrepreneur versus your profession within the confines of a corporation is very different.
Right.
So I think I would just say just jump in. It's going to be ugly at first, so be prepared for that. The sooner you jump in, the easier or the quicker, I would say, you work through that ugliness and you can get to the other side of it where you feel a little bit more comfortable being uncomfortable.
Right.
I would also say surround yourself with people that are doing some of the same things that you're looking to do so that you can see what it looks like on the other side of that fumbling, bumbling, ugly phase of starting up.
Right.
And lastly, I would say that it's a really unusual feeling, that this notion that the universe is kind of conspiring towards what you want to do, like it's trying to help push you in the direction. So, putting a goal in place, being very specific about it, voicing it to people who care about you, you'll be so surprised at how many I don't know what you call people come your way, opportunities come your way, doors just get randomly open. And if you bake that into your plan up front, it wouldn't make sense to not make the jump.
Right.
But I don't think before you enter into the world of entrepreneurship, you just don't know that exists. So
just go for it.
Basically.
No, you did mention that it's going to be ugly whenever you first get started because you're learning. It's a learning process. Can you tell us a little bit about a failure that you had through your journey and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I think I would consider my lack of self-promotion. I'm not as good at sales. I'm a marketing person. I'm not a salesperson. And it feels like I'm being a used car salesman whenever I start talking to someone about my service offerings and trying to close them on the deal. So, can I count on you to sign up for, it really feels awkward and not that great. I'm happy to passively, hand you a business card, but to really try it and get those new clients is very difficult. And I had an opportunity about a month ago. I was in Kenya, and at an event, the Kenyan Private Sector Alliance, KESPA, that's what it was called. We got together, and I was with some really good people, again, keeping good people around me, and they created this event where KESPA, the Private Sector Alliance, brought together Kenyan professionals to speak to American professionals, and we were just talking about business and learning from each other. And that is my target market. I think I call my target market diasporans, or people who are African that are in America or in Africa. And yeah, they generally get it. Those are the right clients. They understand Africa as an opportunity. And I was there with a room full of them, Americans that obviously thought good thoughts about Africa, Africans that obviously were professional. So that would be the perfect place for me to talk about White Rose. And instead of asking the organizers, which would have been more than happy to give me a spot on the stage to either MC the event or just have my company visible in some way, or to bring some sort of literature about the company or something, I just sort of took the position that I would work the room and pass out my business cards and kind of get, so I think that was a lost opportunity. And I kind of beat myself up about it in the beginning because that's, there's not very many opportunities to talk to my audience because it is such a niche audience. But I learned that, especially when there are people around you that care about you and interested in what you're doing. You don't always have to be fully baked, because that was my excuse. Well, I'm not really ready yet. I just kind of launched. I want to get some work under my belt first before I go. And I was having all of these second thoughts about it. And again, just jump in, you know?
Right. No, that's a good lesson, and it's a good experience that you went through, and now you know how to handle it if you presented the opportunity again.
Absolutely.
All right. What has been your proudest moment so far?
I think that sending my farewell email, I won't even say resignation, but just the farewell email, because when I left corporate, I sent a note that, as most people do, that says I'm leaving, but it also introduced my company.
Right.
And I think being in a place where I could be proud of my next step, and I wasn't, as I had seen people do so many times before, get kicked out as a result of a merger, acquisition, or restructure. And they sort of leave with their tail between their legs. Some people teary-eyed, head hung low. You feeling like, I'm not sure what's wrong with me. It was this whole dramatic thing, right? So I feel like it was good for me to say, you know what, I'm leaving, and I'm using everything that I've learned in corporate as a stepping stone to get me into the next phase, which is going to be starting my own company. So I thought it was a really great moment for me to hold my head up high and take advantage of this opportunity, not as something that was forced upon me, but something that I chose to do because I want to do it. And now my proudest moments are every time I get a new client. Yay!
That's always something to cheer about.
Absolutely.
Now, how are you different now as an entrepreneur from whenever you started?
Well, the mechanics of my life are just different.
Okay.
So my schedule is much more flexible. I don't commute because I work from home right now. And even when I do begin commuting again, I'm looking at office space. It will be a much shorter commute, which will enable me to have the flexibility. And because of the flexibility and the lack of commuting, I'm able to sleep more, which is healthy. I cook more. I work out more. I worked out this morning. I watch less TV. It almost feels like I'm not trying to overcompensate for being confined at work.
Yeah.
Because I like what I did before, but I like the way that I do what I do right now. So I don't feel so constrained. And then when I leave work, it's like, okay, let's get to a happy hour and let's watch this. I don't feel like I need to have fun just baked in, because my life is a little bit less stressed all the way through. I mean, I do have some stress points, but I'm not trying to balance out, the work with life. It's all very much way more integrated, and as such, I don't get the Monday blues. I don't get upset on Sunday like, oh my goodness, I got to go to work on Monday. Even if I have, calls on the weekends, or with working with Africa, sometimes you have calls at either end of the day. That doesn't bother me as much. And then I don't thank God that it's Friday, because I'm like, oh wow, the week's over.
You are living life on your terms, and it spills over beyond business, which is a wonderful thing.
And then other than the mechanics of life, I do feel like I get a chance to meet much more interesting people, in terms of, or not interesting, but outside of my normal, I think when you're in a corporate environment, you kind of have your coworkers, your agency partners, et cetera. It's pretty much the same group of people. But now, I wake up and I have no idea what opportunity is going to get thrown my way, and I'm just totally open and much more optimistic about opportunities. So.
No, that's wonderful. Any parting words of wisdom you have for entrepreneurs and those who are dreaming about starting their business but haven't yet made the leap?
I think they just have to do it. There's no downside. There's only upside when you really have all the information. Corporate will be there. If for some reason you decide that now isn't the right time, or it's not working the way you thought it was going to work, or something, it's not the end of the world. You can always go back to work. That's the one thing about the stability, the so-called stability of corporate America, to be there. So you really don't have anything to lose, and you have everything to gain. So what are you waiting for?
Oh, no, that's great advice. great advice, and it's a good way to get people to think about the opportunity that's in front of them. All right, what can we expect to see from you in the future?
I think obviously, like I'm talking about clients, and more clients, which which means that I will have to do a better job in building the team. So right now, I have myself and I have a few freelance people that are working with me, which I'm grateful for. But with more clients, you're able to build out your team in a more robust way. And I think I'm going to get better at this self-promoting thing. So at this point, I'm writing a business. I mean, I'm writing a book, which I will have to promote. It's sort of my experience in doing business and specifically marketing in Africa. So that's due out later this year. And obviously, I'll have to promote that. I'm on schedule to do a few classes with the small business group here in New York City. Yeah, and other than that, I'm hoping to do a few talks and additional appearances to just get better at this self-promotion thing. So I think that will be different moving forward than what I've been doing up till now.
Oh, sounds good. Sounds like you got lots of exciting things on the horizon. So look forward to hearing more about what you're doing, your work, and of course your book. So you'll have to let us know whenever that comes out. We'll help you promote. All right, so let's go to our bonus question for the day. Can you deliver a line from us from a movie that has stuck with you?
Okay. I'm going to choose a movie that is based on Africa. Big shocker. The movie Coming to America, which has loads of one-liners. But one of my favorite from the movie is when Hakeem is cleaning up in McDowell's restaurant, and he says he's emptying trash, and he's trying to flirt with Lisa. He says, "When you think of trash, think of Hakeem." And I love that. But the thing I love most about that movie, honestly, is the juxtaposition of an opulent Africa and a sort of poorish America. They were looking at Queens, and I think that's a very good just a metaphor, if you will, for kind of what I'm doing right now in business. There's a lot of money and there's a lot of business opportunity and there's a lot of growth happening in Africa. And most people, we have our minds tuned to see it opposite. And, there's a lot of wealth here in America and in the Western world, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist in Africa. So, when you think of Africa, think of Bianca.
Absolutely. We absolutely will. Oh, and I love Coming to America too. I think I watched it hours upon hours whenever I was a little kid. All right, this has been fabulous, Bianca. Thank you so much for coming to chat with me, and we'll be excited to follow you and what you're doing in the future.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
All right, thanks. Bianca had lots of great information to share, but there was one thing in particular that stood out to me. And that brings us to today's I Am the One challenge. It's great to invest time in learning from others, but you've got to apply those lessons if you want to make them work for you. So based upon Bianca's insights, here's today's challenge question for you. What research do you need to do to get a greater understanding of your customers and the market in which you're competing in? You've probably already got a baseline of foundational knowledge, but what more do you need to know so you can be even more effective with your marketing efforts and in serving them? Think about it and then head on over to iamtheone.fm where you'll find the show notes for this episode. There you'll see I've prepared a worksheet for you to help you address the challenge question for your business. Now, once you've got your answer, leave a comment on the show notes page or even tweet me at Sonia E. Thompson and let me know what market intelligence you need. Until next time, keep working on building your dream business so you can make life better. Somebody's waiting on you. Thanks for watching.